fifth episode begins with a new member of the Sisterhood, Sister Franchesca, arriving on Salusa Secundus. She was once Emperor Jovico Carino's concubine and is Constantine's mother. Her arrival during an official ceremony disrupts the royal family's dynamics and sees Empress Natalia's influence over her husband Wayne, because Jovico is still deeply infatuated with Franchesca. As Valya later explains, Franchesca used the sisterhood art of imprinting on him, causing such a strong impression that he will always love her. She arrives unannounced during the unveiling ceremony of the Emperor's new elite regiment, claiming to have gotten a message from Constantine, and their son becomes the central issue between her and the Emperor. Constantine has always been seen as a troublesome youngster, incapable of holding responsibility, but Franchesca manages to sway Jovico. Back at the Harkonnen apartment on Salusa Secundus, Valya briefs Franchesca on the dire situation the sisterhood finds itself in. She confesses that she sent the message under Constantine's name to avoid being tracked by the Spacing Guild, and tells Franchesca about Mother Kasha's death and everything that happened afterward. Franchesca immediately recognizes Desmond Hart as being the reckoning that Mother Superior Valya spoke of on her deathbed. Francesca's mission, then, is to guide House Carino back to the Sisterhood, convincing Jovico to allow Princess Inez to study on Wallach IX, and to make Constantine the new commander of the Imperial fleet. After the ceremony, Baron Harrow Harkonnen, distrustful of his Aunt Valya's actual motives and fearful of Hart's display of power, visits Hart at the Imperial Palace to offer a formal apology for attempting to confront the Imperial House during the Landsraad meeting. Hart attempts to manipulate the Baron, revealing that his true intention is to wipe out the Sisterhood by exposing their ties with the rebellion. Harrow helps Hart by telling him about contraband of whale fur from Lankavale. His own investigation showed that contraband in the Salusan capital city of Zimia was conducted on the underground market by a gang of Arakeen smugglers, and he suggests that Hart start there. In return, Hart gives Harrow a forbidden thinking machine device to eavesdrop on Valya. Later, Hart invites Swordmaster Kieran Atreides to join his regiment in searching for the rebels, but Constantine shows up for a lesson. Late, as always. Kieran lashes out at the boy, but is truly afraid of what Hart will do to his rebel friends, and ends the lesson immediately. He rushes to Zimia to alert Michaela about Hart's incoming attack. After torturing a smuggler who rats Michaela's bar as a hotbed for insurgents, Hart goes straight there, and taunts her by asking why a Fremen like her is profiting from spice and the raping of Arrakis. As Hart and his regiment ravage the place, Kieran and Michaela detonate the explosives and flee. Outside, they part ways once Kieran finds out she is actually part of the Sisterhood. After Franchesca convinces Jovico that Constantine needs to be given more responsibility so he can prove himself, it's time to convince Constantine that he has what it takes to become the man he wants to be. They have a brief conversation in the training room, where, after he asks her what was the purpose of bringing him into the world, Franchesca tells him that it's to protect his sister from harm, even if it comes from people who claim to love her, leading him to arrest Kieran Atreides. At the Imperial Palace, Constantine continues to train his frustrations away when only stopping to see what Kieran has in his locker. He is surprised to find a blueprint for the palace, indicating the Swordmaster is actually a rebel, and rats him out to Hart. When Kieran returns, Constantine, Hart, and the new elite regiment are all there waiting to arrest him. Later, the Emperor announces his son as the commander of the fleet during a courtyard dinner. The sister had told Jovico she didn't come to Salusa Secundus to drive a wedge between him and his wife. But the damage is done. After Constantine's nomination, Empress Natalia leaves the dinner feeling disgusted and humiliated. Also angry, Inez visits Kieran at the prison and uses what she knows of truth sense on him, only to find out that he never lied to her and worked with the rebellion for the good of the Imperium. After the courtyard dinner, at the end of the episode, Empress Natalia visits Hart in his quarters, where he recovers from the explosion. She tells him that the Sisterhood took everything from her and asks what they did to him. That's when Desmond reveals that the woman who gave birth to him was a sister who sent him to live among scavengers. When she hears that, Natalia kisses him and promises that, Together, they will rid the Imperium of the Sisterhood. At the Harkonnen apartment, Harrow prepares to depart for Lankavale to attend Uncle Evgeny's funeral. He hides something in his suit, probably the device given by Hart, and meets Valya before leaving. The Baron is clearly doubtful about what Valya really wants, but is easily swayed by the promise of power. They part on good terms, as Valya gives him Evgeny's old ring, which is supposed to be worn by the head of House Harkonnen. He tells her to consider the apartment her home while he is gone, probably hoping that a listening device captures proof she can give Hart about her intentions. After the explosion of her bar in Zimia, Michaela meets Valya and Sister Theodosia at the Harkonnen apartment. She reports that Hart survived the explosion and gets angry when Valya tells her that there is a contingency for that. Michaela lost the work of a lifetime, but Valya tells her it wasn't in vain and that it was required to keep Hart occupied while Franchesca exerts her influence over the Emperor. The Mother Superior then gives Michaela access to the Sisterhood's safe house on Arrakis, but rather than leaving on good terms, Michaela warns her that she won't betray the Fremen like she betrayed the rebels. Back at the Sisterhood's headquarters on Wallach IX, Reverend Mother Tula Harkonnen recruits the help of Sister Jen, the only acolyte who didn't share in the eyes in the darkness nightmare in the previous episode. Jen has been ferociously questioning Tula about the nightmares, but Tula quenches her thirst for answers by getting her involved in caring for Sister Lila, who is still struggling to take control of her body after dying in the agony and being resurrected in a tank of spice. Tula's plan works. Jen and Lila were close, so having a friend's voice to follow proves important to Lila. When Jen explains the collective nightmare the acolytes experienced, however, Lila suddenly shivers, her body being taken over by Mother Rakella, who is one of her foremothers. Rakella knows everything about the nightmare, because it's the exact same vision she had on her deathbed. Rakella explains that it wasn't a nightmare, but prescience, a vision of the upcoming reckoning, and if he succeeds, humanity will backslide into self-destruction. She is talking about Desmond Hart, but Jen doesn't know about that. Unable to contain Rakella, Jen leads her to the laboratory to talk to Tula. The role reversal between Tula and Rakella in Lila's body is funny, as Rakella is aware of what's happening, but doesn't care about formalities. Her goal is to get answers and help the Sisterhood, so she doesn't care who sees her, while Tula is desperate to keep it a secret. Analyzing Kasha's brain samples, Rakella identifies the same enzyme used by the thinking machines during the Butlerian Jihad, when they created the Omnious Plague to try and decimate the human race. During Rakella's explanation, Sister Avila knocks on the lab's door to deliver the blood sample of Desmond Hart, and she is disgusted to see that Lila has been possessed, calling it an abomination. This is the term the Bene Gesserit used to describe what happens when someone is possessed by the genetic memory of a forebear, like what happens to Lila. It also applies to people who are preborn, like Alia Atreides in Dune Part 2. Rakella interrupts Tula and Avila's altercation to inform them that the enzyme has been turned into a virus. Finally, once Lila is safely restrained and resting, Tula takes Desmond Hart's blood sample to Anarul, the secret Sisterhood AI, to analyze. The discovery shatters her. Desmond has both Atreides and Harkonnen blood. This all but confirms that Desmond Hart is the product of her relationship with Ori Atreides when she was young, and that young Tula was pregnant when she slaughtered the Atreides all those years ago.